Alexander Knife Sharpening. So, the first job in this series of showing things complete from start to finish as complete jobs that come in the shop, today is going to be a set of Henckles knives. Very standard stuff that comes in all the time. These I am going to polish up a little bit so that they look a little nicer. I'm going to do that on my dental abrasives, and I'm going to show you how I do that. I will only be doing just a quick polishing on these. This is not going to be any type of refurbished job or anything like that. This is just very standard cleaning and stuff that I do on a regular basis that comes in the shop. Hi everyone, it's Paul from Alexander Knife Sharpening, and this is going to be the set of Henckles knives, which is a very standard stuff that kind of comes in the shop all the time. My choice for this is going to be to do these on the 1x30, so I'm going to sharpen them there. But the very first thing I like to do is just clean stuff up and make it look good. So I'm going to do a little bit of buffing on my jewelry buffers to just kind of touch these up and make these look nice. I'll show you here. We have a few marks in the bolster area, and you can see some oxidation on this knife. I always do my cleaning up work first, and then I do my sharpening last. That's good. And my goal here, and I'll just show you quickly, you'll see how fast this starts removing the oxidation off of this Henckles. And this is a fairly quick process. There's a big water stain on this one up in the front here. I'm working on that. That looks good. Doing the other side. These have some time and use on them. You can tell the Henckles logos are almost not visible. And it's funny, but you can actually, once you remove the oxidation, you can actually see them better. So a lot of times they're just covered up with oxidation. And a lot of times the polishing will kind of show that. And when you get them properly cleaned up, alcohol, rag. You see all that gray? That's just oxidation coming off of there, which happens over time. But they just look a lot nicer when you clean that up, and the bolsters really buff up really nice. Now, another thing you can do, touch the plastic if you want to polish that up. When you're doing plastic, one of the keys is keep moving. Don't use high speed. You don't want to burn it or melt the plastic. You just want to lightly touch it and get in there and just kind of buff it up a little bit. You have to be very, very careful, and you always want to keep moving when you're doing plastics. Any type of plastic handles, acrylic handles, just make sure that you keep moving. If you stay in one spot, you can burn it or melt the handle. You know, and you're going to see, I mean, there's a lot of times there's going to be scratches and stuff in there. You can get them out. I've shown that in other videos with the dental abrasives. But, you know, I'm not, this person didn't ask to have their handles redone. This is just a general quick cleanup. And this one's done. I might hit a little bit more in here. Seeing a little haze from some oxidation. And I'm going to hit the bottom part with my hand. With my 3M dental abrasives that I have on a Fordham tool. Because it's just easier to get in here with this than it is to try and hold it to the dental abrasive machine. So that general cleanup's done. Now I'm going to do all three now of the other knives, and then I'll go to sharpening. Okay, so now I'm on to my sharpening. I'm not going to turn my downdraft table on. I will just wear a mask. But not going to talk a whole lot here, but I will show a little bit of the general process. So what I have here, what I'm seeing a Henckles that has some definite chips in it. So it really is going to need a few passes on our 120 Cubitron to get a new bevel kind of established there and remove those chips. Now, some people have asked, I've talked before about, you know, stay on one side till you raise a burr. And some people have commented on that particular video, you know, oh, well, you know, if you stay too long on one side, to re-establish a burr, you're going to have uneven sides. And I will concede that, yes, you know, if, in general, if your angle's correct and you're close to matching what the, you know, the correct angle on that particular knife is, and in kitchen cutlery, you'll generally raise a burr in 2 or 3 passes. If it's super dull, it might be 4 or 5 or more. But if you start getting way beyond 4 or 5 on one side, yes, I would say make sure you do equal strokes on the other side. You do want to keep it equal. So don't, you know, the point there being, and maybe I didn't stress this enough, like, you don't want to be doing 30 strokes. If you have to do 30 strokes on one side to raise a burr, and then, you know, people are saying, well, if you went to the other side, you might raise the burr in 3 strokes. Yes, correct. When I say, like, counting's not super important when you're, you know, initially raising that burr, you do want to keep your bevels equal. So keep track of it and do very, very close to the same amount on the other side. If it takes you way more than a pass or 2 to raise a burr. Now, typically, if you're real close, it's only going to be a pass or 2. Sometimes it's more. Okay, and for example, just now, I only did 3 passes, and I raised a burr. So there is a burr here, but here is also something to keep in mind. There is also still visible chips in this blade. So I'm going to do my other side. I'm going to do my 3 passes. But if you still see visible chips, you may want to grind more and get those out. So I'm going to go to my other side and we'll see if they're gone. Okay, and I'm not seeing, well, I do see one tiny chip here. I see one tiny one. So I'm going to do a little bit more. Even though we raised the burr, I don't want there to be any chips in this when it goes back. So I'm going to add a little bit more. So I'm going to do probably 3 more on each side. And now those chips are definitely gone. And the other thing I'll tell you too, you know, visually, and you'll notice this, once you have raised that burr, you'll see it when you go back and forth. So if you look at the very edge, you'll see a little shiny burr. Like, you'll see it. Even going edge leading, it's a little harder to see edge leading, but you'll see it, especially at 120. You'll see that burr. And I have a tiny little bit of a high bolster here, so I'm going to take that down a little bit. You can see the Henckles sharpener does a very nice job of working on bolsters. Sometimes I'll come up on the top and do a little bit of work up here too. So I just want to get that down there, and then I want to even out that tiny little bit here in the back. Still a little high. There we go. Now it's nice and even. We don't have a little high point sticking out. And I'm just going to make sure that's just properly thinned out back there. Alright. So now I'm going to go on to the next machine down. And how I've been working lately, and I've tried it different ways. And this has worked out pretty good for me. So this should be my A30 or 800 grit Trizac. What I've been doing lately is my real rough sharpening on the Henckles and my finish sharpening all on the same machine by just changing the belt out. And what that does is that's making sure that that final edge angle is definitely exactly the same. This is a 1200 grit Trizac. And then my last machine has been stropping on this 1x30 on the end. And why I like that is because when I have to do serrated knives, which I like to do with little miniature belts, that dust you see coming off of there is because I just retreated my belt this morning with some lapistry diamonds in alcohol. This is a This is a 3 micron spray I made myself by mixing alcohol with lapistry diamonds. And you can see this is just super sharp and ready to go back. And that knife's done. I'm going to do the other two. Same process, and that will be the end of these Henckles knives, and they'll be ready to go back. Okay, so my final steps for me is just to clean everything off. Be careful wiping them. Every time I've ever cut myself in my shop, it's usually been cleaning, polishing, and wiping things that are freshly sharpened and are super sharp. But I like to clean them up a bit, and then they go into a knife sleeve. I have a little punch. I had my own knife sleeves made. I made the punch to just make it easier for people to get their knife into their knife sleeve. So same thing, just a quick polish up, get any shop dust or dirt. And you can see how beautiful these bolsters are now from that quick polishing. And these just look so much better. And same thing, I just slide that in. Oh, forgot to do my little punch. I try and remember to do it. Just makes it easier if they decide to keep them and use them. And a lot of my customers will, when they bring their knives back, they still keep the paper sheets, so then it makes it easier for them to bring them back to me. And it's got all my information on there, links to my website. With the small ones, a lot of times these I'll cut just to save a little money for myself. And this is another one that I always like to punch since I do cut them. And I actually made this, little punch myself. So they're ready to go back to their customer. I took a regular paper punch, but I ground it flat. So you can see here I ground a lot. Oh, probably a 1/4 inch off of there, so that this was thinner, so I could fit it into my knife sleeves like that, because when it was full size I couldn't get it in there, and that gives me the ability to put that little cut mark into my sleeves. And then I'll show you my final part of my process is just wrapping their knives. I take them and I usually just wrap them with some pressure tape so that they don't fly around their car when they're driving home. They're nice and safe, but this is tape that sticks to itself. There's no actual adhesive on it. It's like kind of like a saran wrap type of stuff. It works really, really good. And that's it. These are ready to go back to their customer.